to call the Mashpee School Committee meeting of December 11th, 2019 to order. It is 5:34. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we just need to ratify the agenda for this evening. I'll take a motion to do so.
Move to ratify the agenda December 11, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, John, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Almost back on schedule. Okay, it looks like we have a public comment tonight. Phyllis Sprout?
Yes.
Why don't you come up to the table for us? Are you taking notes?
I am. Do we have to say that?
No.
You said that last time.
What's that?
I'm taking notes.
I was just clarifying.
Good evening, Superintendent and school committee members. My name is Phyllis Sprout. I'm Quiniquisette Avenue, Mashpee. I'm coming to you because I heard something on the news that has popped up over the years, and I thought, well, maybe instead of tackling the problem from the top down, we'll look at it from the bottom up. So in Maryland, an 11th grade student refused to take part in a school assignment which required her to write the Islamic conversion prayer, the Shahada, that states, "There's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah." And she believed it directly contradicted her Christian faith, and she was assigned, she got an F in the class, and then she was made to watch a pro-Islam PowerPoint presentation that denigrated her religion and basically said that Christians are not as faithful as Muslims. Well, it goes on, it made its way through the courts, and finally this year, which is why it popped up in the news, the Supreme Court decided that they did not want to hear the case when it came up from the lower courts. So this is why I'm thinking, why should we wait for the Supreme Court to make a decision one way or another? They're very limited. And I thought at the bottom you'll see, instead of letting these highly controversial issues wade through the court system, I would ask the school committee to consider making a small opt-out provision within our school policy that would preempt future lawsuits. For example, no student shall be required as any part of an assignment by any school authority to write or declare a religious profession of faith. If such an assignment is given in a class and the student objects, the teacher will be prepared with an alternative non-religious assignment. And I was just thinking that if that had been in the school policy in Maryland, it might have prevented probably lawsuits that cost the parents money and the town some money. So I just ask that the school committee consider it and keep me informed as to any decisions that you might make.
All right, thank you,
Well,
folks.
thank you.
Appreciate you coming in.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, so the next item I have on the agenda is the Coon Share-Out, Mr. Lavelle.
This way, you did that, you just hold on, see if I can work
Alicia, she want you to go ahead? I just want to introduce them first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, good evening. And the Coombe School is very proud to present tonight a project that has, it runs very, very deeply through our school district. It started with an idea that blossomed into some projects that exploded into a cross-age collaboration between our school, Mrs. Palmer's tech class, and Amanda Howe up at the high school. This project, I'm not going to steal their thunder, but they have presented on a state and regional platform for their project, which they're going to share about. And they are a hot commodity because they have also been asked to present at another conference. And this is not a one and done activity or project that we've done. This is something that has grown to across grade levels and through the tech department at the high school. I have two very talented teachers, Mrs. Palmer and Mrs. Smith, who have a never-ending bucket of ideas, which I can never say no to. But it always results in great results, and I think one of as a principal, what I'm most proud of is we sometimes not give kids the credit of what they can actually create in the way that they think. And these activities have really allowed them to explore, make mistakes, improve, and become foundational ground thinkers and creators through design thinking. So I'm going to let them tell the rest of their story.
Yeah, great. So Amanda and I have been working together for about 3 years now. We went to ISTE together, and it started the whole thing. And then it started this project actually with our cross-age student teaching. We really found that high school kids could share what they learned and use all those magnificent tools in the makerspace to build things for our school and our kids to learn. So when I bought these Ozobot robots, what did you guys think of them?
Cool. I thought they were cute to me. I thought when I tried them out, they looked fun.
Yeah, and like golf balls, right?
Yeah, they look like mini golf balls.
Right. So then we were like, where are we going to put all these little robots? So that's why we decided to build a mini golf course. So we decided to do it 2 ways. One way is for robots, and the other way is for playing mini golf. So we actually had the kids come, and what was the first step? Do you remember what we had to do?
Pick out the holes.
We had to come up with a whole bunch of designs and brainstorm what each class wanted to do for holes. So we have actually 7 holes. The holes are right here. We have a shark, a Cape Cod, a Mashpee, of course, a falcon nest, right? A sandcastle one. And then their designs and blueprints got sent up to the high school. So we did spend about 6 weeks Skyping the high school. So as they were building, we got to Skype them. Did you guys like those Skypes?
Yeah.
Because they got to ask questions like, how do you want the falcon? Do you want feathers or fur, or big or small? So, they were kind of guiding they're collaborating together. It was nice to use that technology. And then the high school kids got to come down and we painted it together. Was that fun to finally meet them? And the PTO at our school was nice enough, you guys can go try out the mini golf course if you want, to buy the green and actually make it a functional mini golf course. So they bought the balls and the green and the turf and all that stuff. And then our phys ed teacher, Mrs. Daly, was nice enough to put them in the gym where they got completely set up, and everybody got to play mini golf and learn and do the math and take turns and count their strokes and do all kinds of that stuff. So it's yeah, they're really super big. That was one of those things. I thought they were going to be smaller and portable, and when I saw the sandcastle was like this big, I'm like, oh, okay, it's a lot bigger, but it's sturdy, it's held up, and the high school kids have, re-engineered some of the pieces to it that broke off just from play with the kids. So it was kind of nice to have them come back and say, geez, Amanda, these little pieces were breaking. So they kind of did some 3D printing and did some improvements to the course, right? Yeah, so then underneath, the problem in the art room I have is I have nice big tables, but with the robots, they were going like all over the floors and stuff. So the nice part is this comes off with Velcro. There you go. There you go, and there's some robot course. You can get your Ozobots. So why don't you tell the school committee how the Ozobots work?
Well, before you tell us that, can you tell me your names?
Oh gosh, we never did.
This is Karina Russo.
Okay.
I know you're Sean. I was going to be fresh.
What grade?
They were first grade when...
But they're currently in second
They're in
grade.
second grade now.
Second, yeah.
So it's Sean and Karina?
Yes, Sean and Karina, yeah. So Karina, why don't you tell them how the Ozobot reads code?
So the Ozobots read color codes, and there's in the color, and they only read blue, red, and black and green. And then there's a code key, and then there's stickers that you use, and you put the stickers onto the lines, the black lines from the marker, and then the stickers are the stickers of one of the keys, and it has all the directions and
Right, so it tells them to take
tricks.
lefts and rights and spins and going fast and slow, right? So when we do this at the school, we have lots more props that are on there, so it's more like an obstacle course. A lot of the stickers have been taken off, but it's nice to put them, I have 6 of these, so I can put one on each table in the art room, and then the robots are safe and they can work them and move them around and change the code and yeah, and learn a little bit more about coding and robotics, right? Yeah.
That's awesome.
So now, do you guys have any questions for them? Because they are experts in what robots are coding.
Well, my first question was, so did you ever set up all 7 holes somewhere?
Oh yeah, in the gym. We've done it several times. So Mrs. Daly, our phys ed teacher, put them all in the gym, and so yeah, we had everybody playing for gym for the week before April vacation last year. So it was really nice. They all, even the preschool, we thought couldn't do it, but they loved it.
Oh, that's
They really had a really good time, and then it's been out for field day and.
And our STEM night was kind of its unveiling. So we used our whole courtyard, which was like a mini golf course.
Yeah,
Exactly
fit
where it was all
perfect in
set
there
up.
too, right in that little courtyard area.
Oh, okay.
So when was this introduced into the school?
So we started, I started in September with the kids and brainstorming ideas, and then we sent it to Amanda and we Skyped for October, November.
Last year.
Last year,
last year.
a year ago,
That's
yes,
right.
last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was a whole year-long project last year, yeah. And then she assigned 2 students in her technology and engineering classes to actually work with the class and design and build it. So they were using different ones. Have the Shark obviously is a big plywood one, but they use, you know, the I don't know the names of all her cool machinery up there.
She
you
has
know.
a laser engraver, and I am her kid.
Yeah.
No, I thought I detected a resemblance.
Yeah.
You look a little like your mom.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so they did a great job, and we brought them to MassQ in the fall, and they got to present there and tell about it, and a lot of people were really interested in it. And they love the fact that the high school kids are getting to share their learning and building something meaningful that the little kids can use for, you know, for a while now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are there any plans to add additional holes?
No.
I think storage would be an issue at this
Stopping at
point.
7,
We are,
okay.
yeah, we have to, this is a, yeah, they're big and heavy, and we have them kind of stacked, so I don't think we could go bigger. What do you think? I don't think
We're
so.
gonna keep it just a simple, maybe
Yeah.
9 holes.
We have
get
7
that.
right now, so we have a 7-hole course, yeah.
So what's your favorite activity?
Which hole?
The robots, the
Oh,
mini golf?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I like the robots.
You like the
because
robots?
I could just sit all day watching them and just go around in circles. It's very mesmerizing with the lights to me.
Yeah, and it's fun to code them too, right? With the color codes, you guys did a good job
And I
with
like
that.
golfing because I don't want courses, and I just play with my grandpa and dad and my brother, and I just
You play golf anyways, right?
yeah.
Yeah, he's a golfer.
You don't golf with Mom?
Yeah, she still golfers.
I don't know when she finds the time to go.
I don't either. She never says no. Yeah, and so these guys are scheduled, that we did get an approval to present at the Inspired Learning Convention at the Heinz Convention Center in January. So at first they had to check because they never had anyone this young presenting at the conference, and they weren't sure. And I said, well, it's their project. If they can't go, we're not coming. And so they got back to us that day and said, yes, they were invited. So that's really nice. And,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, something to be very proud of.
The only question I would have is, so if we're not gonna have any more holes, and you're gonna continue on with this program, I'm sure, has there been talks of expanding it into potentially other, robotic devices or anything in the future?
Oh, well, actually, Amanda and I are working on a different project this year. We've already started. We're working with Booker Nelson. He's in Korea. So we're doing kind of like a global thing also. Working with him, and he teaches English over there, teaching the kids numbers, letters, shapes, colors. So my first graders this year are learning a little bit about Korea, and we're making a book about colors, numbers, and that to send over to him along with some circuitry. So we're working on circuits and batteries and light up things. Sharing, her kids right now are designing paper villages and towns and lighthouses, kind of in our architecture, and then designing some in the Korean architecture with temples too, so that our kids will get to see those and write circuits on them and kind of share that little bit of technology with circuitry this year and do that global connection. So yeah, so that's coming along. We're working on that. It's kind of hard when we Skype him, it's 8 o'clock at night and 9 o'clock tomorrow morning there. They're that far ahead of us, but it's a nice connection so far, and the kids are learning a little bit about Korea, so yeah. So.
And Booker is a Mashpee graduate, also the son of a retired teacher from Mashpee.
Yeah, sorry, I did not say that. Yeah, I know, yeah, so, yeah, we had him a long time ago, so that's great, yeah.
Well, congratulations, you guys.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing the show.
How do you feel about having all this attention?
Pretty good.
You seem to be dealing with it pretty well.
Yeah,
so,
you do.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank
And then
you for having
remind
us.
your friends and their parents that they can watch you on TV, because our meeting gets recorded.
So you
and
can wait till
watch it
everybody on
on-
TV.
You can watch it on YouTube, and you can watch it at your house. They play it on the TV.
Oh, that's
So,
kind of cool, huh?
yeah,
See, so you're
Make sure you go home and
semi-famous
check it
now.
out. Thank you, Mashpee TV.
Nice, yeah, thank
Would it be
you.
okay if I asked to take a picture of my group with the school committee?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I can take it, so you're in it.
Here, why don't you guys go pick up the robots, and we'll put the green back on.
But let's, make it look good.
Yeah, this time it was,
Do you want to be in it?
definitely outside.
She's the photographer.
I was gonna ask,
Who were all the names? So this whole was done by these kids?
so yes, so I did have them, I wanted them to have some ownership, so this was Mrs. Sousa's class. Yeah, number 1, sharp.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. What do you say, Don?
All right, come on over.
Get behind the hole now.
Why don't you guys stand on the whole?
Oh, that's good, yeah, because you won't
Yeah,
break
stand
it.
right behind the,
Oh, that
the
looks
shark
awesome.
there.
Oh my
There we
gosh.
go.
Look at Mrs. DeBoer first, then I'll.
Everybody
Okay.
smile.
Awesome. All right, now my turn. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thanks, Chris.
Good job.
Thanks, Nick.
We're gonna take off this thing and put it back.
We can leave it right now.
Yeah,
There's
like all.
I'll take that back.
Work on our
All
planning.
right,
I'll pick it up tomorrow.
all right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Palmer.
Thank
And I think you always have to thank the parents who support us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Research.
Happy to.
Thanks, Karina. Thanks, Sean.
Better dust off your passports.
I know, right? Took a little global trip there.
Yeah. Okay, so our next item is Skyla. It doesn't look like she's
asked to go at 6:45.
Okay, so now we've got Mr. and Mrs. Troyanos. Trying to see if I can get status as a high school junior before you guys take this trip. Yeah, exactly. So just make sure that you kind of take the mic a little bit so we can make sure they hear you. Yeah, thank you.
So, good evening.
I'm Mrs. T, or Mrs. Travis, and you, probably most of you know us, but this is my husband, Andy Travis, and we sent in all the information for you to consider last month to see if we could get approval for an international trip to Italy and France, and we gave a lot of information in the packet, so I don't want to repeat everything again for you, but there is an itinerary and all the information in there, but I don't know if you have any further questions for me or anything, so if you do, I would be happy to help answer those now. And I didn't know, between us, we have 40 years of experience in teaching, so we're very aware of the students' social and emotional needs and educational needs, and I just want you to feel as though they're in good hands if they're with us. We have 3 adult children that made it all the way to adulthood, and we have grandchildren, and we both teach and mentor kids and do a lot of clubs and so forth. And we did a trip in 2012 that was extremely successful to Ireland, and shortly after that they stopped all the international trips for a while, but we're hoping that we can get those reestablished. There's a lot of, I know the language department and other people are interested in it too, but we would like to make this a focus of art and music, and we feel that the students would benefit so much just from the traveling, but also the educational opportunities, the experiential learning that they can get from seeing the Sistine Chapel in real life instead of seeing it in a book, or all the actual things that they can experience would broaden their horizon so much and become a memory that they'll have for the rest of their life. And they really can't travel as inexpensively for the rest of their life as they can now. The packages are really excellent for students, and they include everything, including the airfare and the hotels and the food and all of the entrances to everything. So when we did it last time, we not only invited the students, but allowed, if they wanted a parent to go as well, that they could have the parent come along. And so the parents would only room with their child or with another parent if the students wanted to room together and the moms wanted to room together. We happened to only have mothers that time, so there was a lot of mother-daughter combinations, and they had the time of a lifetime. We could give you a lot of letters of recommendation or names if you wanted to speak to any of them, but if you had any questions for us, we're happy to answer them.
Is this scheduled for a vote tonight? To approve or to approve?
Yes. So it's planned to be for April vacation of 2021. So that gives us a year and a half to do all the fundraising and to break the monthly payments down to a lower amount by having longer time. So by the time the trip comes, everything's paid for, and all they have to do is bring spent money. So,
does the trip cost include their airfare?
yes. Includes the airfare both ways. It includes all the nights at the hotels, breakfast and dinners, and a couple of lunches, but otherwise they like you to do the lunch on your own so that you can experience it in the place that you are in. So mostly they just need a little bit of money for lunches and some souvenirs.
And the earlier commitment will lock in a price.
Exactly,
That's the advantage
yes.
of-
Well, it makes the monthly price lower, because they'll split it up into however many months it is until the trip. So the sooner the better. And I was hoping that if you do approve it, we could have the parent meeting on the 18th of this month, so that it's before before Christmas. Because some people would, what happens is each child gets a little website set up that that tells people that they can share with their grandparents or other people, and then the grandparents or family members could give them, say for their birthday, give them money towards the trip, and it gets put into that account. So I thought just before Christmas, if they were able to do that, they could share it and possibly get their account started.
So the dates are firm?
The
Leaving the 17th and returning the
17th to the
24th.
24th, I think, or 25th. Sorry. I should have that down. I wrote it already.
It's on your field trip form.
Yes.
Oh, it's a good thing we already approved that calendar.
Oh, true.
Yeah. I had a couple of questions. Do you guys have any?
I just have a comment. So one thing I would like to see, and forgive me if it's already in here, like you said, there's a lot of information, is with this being a different world and a different time, which is why I'm sure that the trips were kind of postponed for a while. If this is approved, I would like to see the school, whether through you or whoever, have some kind of pre-trip, like a briefing type thing to kind of inform the students on.
Yes. Oh, we have several of those.
Yeah, how to avoid sticking out and how,
Right.
places to stay away from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we went to Ireland, we did that. We would do this now. We even have a longer lead time for this trip. But we probably had about 6 or 7 meetings before it, leading up to that, all the way up to the last meeting being about how to pack,
Yep.
So we did things explaining about the cultures and explaining about exactly, safety tips and things like that.
Probably not wearing shirts with Johnny American flag on it.
Yeah.
That's
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is true though. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
That kind of relates to what I was going to ask. So I was curious, you said on the trip in 2012, how many students participated in that?
We had 12 with their mom. I'm guessing a little bit, I'm trying to remember, but it was around that number, and a number of them had their parents with them. I think only 2 or 3 kids didn't have their moms with them.
Okay. And so since it's open to students in grades 10 through 12, are you prepared to cut it at a point, or is anybody who wants to come and can afford to come, that signs up and can go, or?
We're prepared to have as many as would like to sign up. We have several other volunteers who would like to be the chaperones. Maybe you would too.
Sign me up.
And but we have, so for every 5 students, if we go through Explorica, which is who I was considering, they only need 5 students to pay for 1 chaperone. So if we start with 10, that covers the 2 of us. If we add 5 more, there's a teacher at the Quashnet who is a former Mashpee student who also took a trip in her senior year and said that it was life-changing for her, and so she would really like to be part of that. And so we would have her as the 3rd person and so forth. So it's every 5 students we get, we can add another chaperone in.
And so the students that this is open to, do they have to be in the music program?
No, but they're going to understand that the focus is towards art and music, but it will be open to everyone.
But every student has art, but not every student is necessarily in music.
Right, but it's open to the whole school, I
It
think.
is,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
I'm surprised you only got a dozen last time. I would be ready for more.
Well, it was Ireland, right, it was Ireland, and it was one of the first ones, mostly up until then, I think they only had trips to Spain. So it was the first time for that country, and that's why, what I loved about this trip was that it's France and Italy, so I think there'll be a big turnout. I think people want to go to one or the other, or both, so I think that there could be a larger group.
Yeah.
And the more the better. If we get, I think it's 32 or something, 30 or 32, then we would get an entire bus to ourselves, just for our school, otherwise we share with another school. So I think.
I thought you were going to say if you get 32, then the superintendent gets to come.
Oh, that.
You need to get invited.
She's already been invited, yes.
They did invite me.
And then I guess my other question was related to security. And
Yes.
so I assume you're going through Explorica, they have sort of protocols and things in place to
Absolutely.
safeguard the kids.
Absolutely. So I did give a whole paper on the security and safety, but
Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay. In general, though, they, number one, have a $50 million liability policy. They have, so the schools and the teachers and so forth are covered. They also have close ties to the American embassies, who will immediately notify them if there's any concerns or anything, so then they reroute the tours around. So if there was a plan to go to a certain place and they were concerned about it at all, then they would just reroute to another location on that day. So there's that. What else was I going to say? a tremendous amount of security systems in place. I have it right here. What's that? Let's see. They have 24/7 emergency support. They have 45 officers around the world. There'll be a website that will go up for our tour in particular, and so the parents can follow along as the children travel from place to place. They can follow the website to see where they go. So there are a lot of steps in place to keep them protected.
And did you handle in Ireland, we have a lot of siblings in the system, and so you kind of shut down the sibling thing. They have to be in that grade, period, right? Is that
Yes.
understood?
Yes.
Okay.
We didn't have that come up, but
It's Paris
if we
and
did, I
Rome now.
wouldn't see a problem with it, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people will embrace the idea of a lot of these mothers had come to the initial meeting, and then the more we talked about it, they kept saying, gee, I wish I could go, I wish I could go. And so then that's how it sort of evolved into having them come along, because, we discussed that, you could come and have your own room and come with us for the whole tour and be as involved with your student or not, as you want to be, how teenagers are, they might not want their mom to come to everything with them, but so sometimes the moms would just have their own lunch or things like that, but they also all said that they had such an amazing time becoming closer to their daughter because of the trip, because they experienced these things together. So that was a lovely little side effect we didn't expect.
Oh, that's great.
So is there a guide each day in each location?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So we
I
have a
see it
permanent
specifically
tour
in
director that,
some places, others, I don't see that listed.
oh, yes, yes.
But there is.
There
So
is.
there's,
Well, there's one constant tour director that stays with us on the bus from the moment we arrive at the
trip.
airport, and they're
so
with
they're
us
basically assigned with you.
to us.
And then you go to locations and somebody else might take over the tour for the afternoon, with a specialist in that area.
Right. Someone who lives in a certain city will show you their particular city, but the tour director is with us for the whole thing, and they plan the whole trip. And they call ahead to each hotel or each restaurant and say, we have 3 vegetarians with us, or we have this special need or that special need, and they're the ones that do all of that arranging.
My last question was related to the language department. And I personally think it's a travesty that we don't teach Italian in the Mashpee school
I
system.
agree.
So does my son. But I assume you're going to coordinate maybe with the French department, the French teacher, and maybe incorporate some of that into the trip somehow.
Well,
Is there any kind of
We would love to. We would love to. We didn't go any further yet until we
Yeah.
could see where how the school committee felt about everything. And there's a lot more that we could do to encourage a lot more other subjects to be involved in it. Certainly history is a big one. It would be in Rome and
Right,
all these places that I think would be just a tremendous experience. If we were able to get enough people, it would be really fun to have a teacher from each subject area go on the trip as well.
Yeah.
So that's
not,
the dream.
but not if they take I studied French. Just
Oh, great.
So did I. So did I. And I didn't get any invitation. I'm really confused. I'm a musician of this group.
You're hearing it now.
So you're all invited?
So the good news is I will have a 10th grader next year, so.
Yay, that's great.
Look at that.
Well, the more the merrier. I really do mean if anyone on the school committee wanted to go, we would love you to go so that you could experience it and see what it's like and see that you could feel comfortable with it. Because I think once you've seen it, you'll be okay with this for many years on. Once you see what the students really experience and how well the trip is run and how much they get from it, I don't think you'll ever want to stop.
It's always amazing when we go to Symphony Hall with the bands or the orchestra, and some of the kids don't get over the bridge. They don't know that another world exists off of this island. So to go overseas is a tremendous opportunity and experience for them.
I agree.
and just knowing that you're going to be traveling back from overseas and jet lag and everything, you're going to try to make every attempt to get back early on that Sunday so that
Yes.
everyone will be in school
Right.
on Monday.
Yeah.
Well, I would have preferred to come back on the Saturday, but then that would have meant we would have had to leave on Friday. We were trying really hard to not have us leave on a school day at all. So we made it so that it fit right within the school vacation. But I can't guarantee someone won't be tired on Sunday or Monday, but
Including us.
but it'll be so worth it.
Well, I guess, and so my only comment, it's not a concern really, it's just, we do this, I want to make sure, you know, it's something that all kids, you know, so there's kids that are, well, my kid's in 7th grade right now, so I want to make sure that there's a plan for a trip after this one, you know, so how do you, since the last one wasn't since 2012, and you're planning for this one almost 2 years out, like how do you imagine this, if it goes well, how do you imagine sort of this scaling up? I mean, are we going to have a regular
Yes.
every 2 or 3 years, or how does that
I know
work?
Ms. Fina goes to Spain. It's a non-school sanctioned trip, I believe. So there's other teachers who are interested in doing this, particularly in the language department. So it wouldn't even just be us necessarily asking in the future.
But I would be interested in doing it every year. I think once the ball gets rolling and everybody understands how it's set up, we could continue it year after year. If not every year, then every other year or something. But I think all of them deserve as many opportunities to go as we can fit in during the time that they're there. And
I think that does go back to what we were talking about earlier. It just depends on the state of the world, you know, like if everything's good and
yeah,
make it happen, we can make it happen. Don't worry about safety.
right.
So hopefully everything stays great. We can continue to do this year.
That's the main consideration.
Right.
Yeah, it's got to be safe.
Yeah. I'm just really encouraged that so many Cape schools are doing this. And,
Yes. I didn't even have all the list when I turned it in a month ago. I found out that there were even more than even what I had supplied to you. So that's another thing. I want Mashpee to be able to be competitive with the other schools, to have the same opportunities as the other towns have. And I was hoping that we could get back to it. So I think it would be tremendous.
Yeah, and I'm also really keen on the idea of bringing kids together that have experiences within their schools and sort of sharing out across the districts and doing more sort of collaborative work across the districts on the Cape. I mean, our superintendents are meeting often now, monthly, talking about issues like affordable housing and other things that are sort of specific to the Cape. And I love the idea of building kind of a bigger community on the Cape for our students. And they just have kind of limited opportunities to do that. So maybe these types of trips could be that kind of glue.
Great idea. Perhaps we could set up the other half of our bus in the future year could be split with, say, Falmouth or another district, you know, so we could get the 2 towns together or 3 towns together. That would be tremendous.
Will you be able to share maybe in the month or 2, like what the interest is? I mean,
Yes,
I don't know
yes.
when they have to make a firm commitment to participate, but it would be nice to know what it
Well,
looks
they
like.
can kind of jump in anytime they
Anytime.
want to, but it just makes the payments higher. So the sooner they jump in, the better. But they only need a $50 deposit to put down on the December 18th meeting, which would be the first meeting. But if any of you would like to attend that meeting too, so you can hear more of what is being said to the parents and so forth, you're welcome to come. We're going to have some French and Italian food there for the meeting, and it will be in my room at 6:30. So if this is all okay with you, it's a good way to hear what will happen in the meetings and so forth.
And maybe you could give me a little write-up that could be part of the weekly emails.
Right, sure.
To try to reach any parents that, or remind
Right,
parents
right,
that
right.
it's an option.
And then when we have the art and music showcase, which has been moved to January, we thought we would put up a table there and tell more parents about it at that event too. So it's kind of lucky that it snowed the other day.
Music in our schools too.
Right.
In March.
Right,
We
we have all the
concerts in January.
concerts.
We have 2 concerts in January. We'll do the same.
Have you had any discussion with the town in regard to the insurance coverage?
We have.
You have any?
We spoke to the town manager and
I'll look into it tomorrow.
Mr.
I have a
Buggets.
couple of insurance issues.
he's connecting with the insurance about whether it's a rider or The town manager did not think it was anything particularly.
I just want to make sure we have it coordinated.
That's happening.
I don't think it would be anything that would tie in. They have a $50 million policy.
I can give you the page here.
Oh, I have it too.
No, we have,
okay.
We have,
Okay,
there's a lot of fine print, I'm sure, in that.
sure.
And
Oh, yeah.
I just want to make
Okay.
sure that someone has made sure that
That is happening.
we understand
They are
what it
aware
is. and-
we're adding, potentially adding foreign travel.
Right.
We'll take care of it.
So, I would make a motion to approve it, subject to a review by the town of the insurance to make sure that it's,
Even if we have to put a rider policy on it, we'll take care of it.
yeah, that gets taken care of.
Yep.
Do I have to include that in the motion? Because that seems procedural, like that doesn't seem.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Seems
a
like we might have to
contingency.
come back.
Yeah, it seems
But
like
we-
to
either
Well, it's
way,
subject
we're
to-
gonna make sure the insurance is there.
Well, they don't have to come back, it's just subject to that being done.
But what being done?
But it is procedural, we are doing that.
Yeah.
You already-
Yeah, that would be like
Okay.
subject
I would
to
have
letting
had it done
parents
today,
know that
but,
it's an
The
option.
person was out.
Sorry, not trying to be difficult, but
No,
taking
that's
notes
fine.
and
I just want to make sure that the point is being.
that will be captured.
That will be
And if
clear.
if you need a number of someone to call at the company as well, I'm sure they could explain it more as well.
I know where you are.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the trip to Italy and France for art and music for April 17th, 2021 through April 25th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, so Don made the motion, Chris seconds. Any further discussion? What day did you say your meeting was?
The 18th, it's Wednesday at 6:30 in my art room.
Sorry, there's a bunch of dates on here. I didn't see that one.
I hate to
That
say
would be
one
good
more.
to include in that paragraph for me, for
Yes.
Thursday's email.
I sure will.
I was only going to add that I would, we can approve it first, let's go first. Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very
I
much.
would reach out to Consuelo, Carol,
Yes.
our outreach coordinator, and I'll
Yes.
bet you could come up with something really cool from the art and music department to sell in the store that could be used as a dedicated fundraiser for this.
Yes, wonderful idea.
Yeah,
I
I think
could
that
think
would
of
be
a
great,
few things
especially
you
with
could
the
sell.
time frame. I'm sure you can't get anything out for this Christmas, but, but you know, there's lots of, she's really, I think driving people to that store is a
Mhm.
win-win for all
She's
of us.
doing a great job.
Didn't that just come up today about selling the music sweatshirts there?
Music,
It was
I
music,
believe.
yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they had some really
Yeah.
nicely designed sweatshirts by Tiana
Peters,
Peters from
yeah.
last year. At the end, there's little music notes in it.
All right.
Thank you so
Go
much.
forth and
Thank you very much
plan.
for your time.
Good luck.
Thank you. Well, I hope I see you Wednesday.
Yeah.
Drive safe,
Oh,
please.
you'll see me.
Black out.
I don't think I can pass up the food. I mean,
Thank you so much. I really
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to us with this.
Absolutely.
Okay, just about on schedule. Next item is to approve the November 20th, 2019 minutes. Take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
For seconds. Any discussion? I have not looked at these very closely. Can you assume that who has?
I wasn't here for it, but I can still vote.
You can, okay. All right. Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, those minutes are approved. All right, now we're right back on schedule. So Patty, report of the superintendent.
So we have the administrator reports in the packet. The Coon School report is here, 403 students. Some of the highlights, they had a successful scholastic book fair, family breakfast, and storybook dance, and the PTO is a very high energy, hardworking group of individuals over there, and they were responsible for that. Also, a shout out to the U.S. Coast Guard, the partnership we have with them, and they come into the classrooms and teach, and the latest topic was properties of materials. And also their Jumpstart Read for the Record. It's a third year they participated in this annual national event with the Thank You Omu. Did I say that right, Mr. LaBelle? Umu? Okay. And what was, I think, interesting and what's happened in the past years too is the Meg Smith and Kim Palmer, again, two superstar specialists, sort of created an interactive experience and hands-on experience for students. So the green screen was put up and they actually had teachers reading the book, which is available to watch or have it read to you at home. And then they also used the makerspace for students to create a collage format art project, which is how the book itself was illustrated. And they worked, all that project was part of a coordinated effort with the Coordinated Family and Community Engagement organization and their coordinator. So, any questions?
No, Paul's still back there?
He
Oh,
is.
It just reminded me when she was talking about that, we should set up the golf course at the mini maker fair in April. Have you already talked to Mike Levine about that?
No, but I'd love to. That would be awesome venue for it.
Yeah, and like the little robots and everything, that would be cool.
Yeah, for sure.
It's right around the corner, April.
We have Principal O'Brien's report for the Quashnet School, 464 students, if you add those two columns. The fourth graders went to the Young People's Concert in November. That's always a nice treat. The Native American Awareness Week, all three schools participated, and a shout out to the Red Hawk Drummers, Wampanoag dancers who are both students in our district as well as from other districts, and Cameron Greendeer, who was basically the coordinator and MC for the event at each school. And then highlighting that the Quashnet School Student Council sixth graders went to a peer leadership training at Bridgewater State University, and they worked with MARC, which is a Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center at the university. They identified key factors of bullying and cyberbullying and building awareness of how students have the power to prevent such actions from occurring. They also had a tour of Bridgewater State University, and that the teacher who went with them, sixth grade teacher David Williams, he's the student council advisor, was very pleased with our students' behavior and how they represented the town of Mashpee as well as the school district. And they're going to come back and integrate some of what they learned with their peers. And one thing I didn't know Principal Brian wanted to do a little bit of a infomercial on is the visitors from China coming.
Yes.
Mike, can you come up here? Sorry.
Hello, everyone. We are expecting 11 exchange students in January coming from Beijing. We are working with Boston Ivy again. We've had students about 2 years ago come, and it was a great experience. Families, I think, really enjoyed it, I think. And I'm looking for 11 families who would like to welcome an exchange student into their home. The students will be our age group, around 10 years old, 8 to 10. It's just a wonderful opportunity for cultural exchange. And it's only approximately a week. It's a Saturday through a Sunday. And 2 of those days, the group does take an excursion to New York City. So we're looking at, it's about 6 nights with the family. And one night there is a great opportunity to see the students come to school and perform on some level and what their interest is. So it's just a wonderful opportunity to have this exchange. Some of the students speak English, some don't, but thank goodness for technology. So more information will be going out on that as soon as I get some bios on the students.
It's during the month of this coming January.
This coming January. We had hoped to get students last year, but visas were held up and the students couldn't make it. And so that group, some have aged into another school. So the ones that are remaining, those 11, their visas just came up. So it's pretty quick. And they're coming right before Chinese New Year, which is January 25th, that weekend. So it's a really popular time for Chinese families to be on vacation. So it'll be the week probably right before that. So I'll be scurrying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. Any questions on the report?
I'm just waiting for the inverse,
Want to go to China?
where we send students to China for the, I'm not sure if you heard that.
Did you
Give it
hear?
time.
Yes.
Mr. Myers is waiting for the inverse where we send our students there.
Well, it was a wonderful opportunity that I was able to go to Beijing, and they would welcome our students. I'm not sure how many of our families would be willing to send our kids that far.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so it's a question.
We have the report of the Mashpee Middle High School, Principal Balstracci, total of 735 students. Just a couple of highlights. Thank you to Mark Rosbach and Stephanie Soares, both science teachers who took a group of students to the Body Works exhibit at the Boston Museum of Science. They were biology students. A thank you to Aphrodite Purdy and Scott Zinzer, two other staff members who took student athletes to the MIAA Sportsmanship Summit in Gillette, at Gillette Stadium. Our robotics team is congratulated for securing a spot at the Southern New England VEX Robotics Championship. Discovering Amelia, which was our fall production, was an outstanding performance. Congratulations to Nicole Childs, Peter DeFrancesco, Avery Fournier, and Jesse Rulo, who were accepted into the Southeast Senior Festival 2020. These are musicians. And again, Principal Balstracci was highlighting our Native American Week, which was very well received. Nice event. Any questions for me? You have Dr. Crowley's report here. There's 259 students currently receiving services. Do any of you have questions on? She has a little bit of information on McKinney-Vento and the foster care program.
It came up when we were reviewing policies for the manual about the requirement that the district has when a child is placed in foster care and the state then designates Mashpee as the home district. And if that child were removed from that home maybe a day later and that designation does not change, then we are responsible for providing transportation to the school wherever they end up going.
The federal government is going to, in the next few months, give us funds under the ESSA grant to pay for the transportation.
So we're going to start to be.
I have to file for it. So if there's a foster student, I'll have to file.
My question,
So far I have one.
my question, I guess, was why don't we, on some periodic basis, evaluate the students that we are currently responsible for that we know do not live in our town any longer? Because I understood from, I thought you hoped that it was a, you know, it can be, this could have been 2 years ago.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And you can put into the state for an LEA assignment, which is that's where the state determines which municipality is responsible for that student.
Okay.
So we do that regularly. It just often comes out as Mashpee. Do you know what I'm saying? Am I answering your question?
Yeah, that at the time when we discussed it during policy, we weren't sure, it wasn't clear how often we did that.
I mean, it depends on the case. If nothing has changed with the placement, foster placement,
Yeah, nothing
we are
has
still
Right.
of origin, then we don't put into. But if something has changed,
We're always looking at that, and we know when things change because the address will change.
right?
So like the pickup address will change, the drop-off address will change, and that's a clue to us to look into it a little bit further. But it's something that we're always looking at and making sure that the students, that we are responsible for them.
And the ESSA reimbursement, is that new or is
That
that?
is brand new.
Okay.
It's brand new. I have until March to file. And so far, I just have one foster care student that would qualify. So I will file for it.
Okay, great.
Just, it hasn't been made clear whether that'll go back to the town or come back to the school. Because as you know, on Medicare and on the kidney dental, the transportation goes to the town.
May I ask a clarifying question? Are you getting reimbursed on transportation or on any costs associated with?
Transportation.
Okay, because there are also additional costs with Foster where we could pay for an out-of-district placement, even though the child's not here. That's not being reimbursed.
That's the LEA process where we have to get the
Yes.
designation.
So I wanted to clarify that there are still definite costs that are not reimbursable unless it hits a circuit breaker threshold that we are still responsible for. I just don't want people to think that the party has started. It hasn't.
No, this is just
Transportation, which is expensive.
The ones that are really going to benefit for these are big cities. They're going to get, they'll get reimbursed, as they should, because their transportation is a lot higher.
Yeah, I think it just seems like, and if it were ever an issue that we were not feeling like it was getting resolved, like that we're incurring expenses that really should not be ours, that's just something I'd like to make sure that gets brought to our attention. But also, we have an opportunity every spring to engage with all of our state representatives and legislators on the Cape. They do a legislative breakfast, and they're always looking for like things that, glitches in sort of the way things work that they can address or advocate for. And I think this is one of those things that it's like a Cape-wide solution. Everybody wants to make sure that these kids are covered properly.
Because it is a big expense.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay. Sorry, that was my related question.
Next report is the Athletic Director, Matt Tavares report, and just some shout outs to some student athletes. Dylan Barger, he's a senior, and Samantha Kersey, who's a sophomore, were selected as Eastern Massachusetts All-Stars. They both play soccer. Sophomore Colin Spencer was selected as a Boston Herald All-Scholastic for the second consecutive year, and Colin is a golfer. And then the Fall South Shore League All-Stars field hockey is Paige Lundberg. Boys varsity soccer, Dylan Barger. Golf is Colin Spencer, Kyle Puchel, and Jack Spencer. For cheerleading, it's Gabby Santos. For girls varsity soccer, Samantha Kersey and Kayla Hall. And then for football, Nolan Lyons, Devin Hughes, Jack Minitsky, Matt Bowen, and Jared Barr were all recognized as South Shore League All-Stars. And just as an upcoming on December 13th at 6:30, that's this Friday, is a home opener for girls basketball. I think they're playing one of the Sturgis teams. And then the following Friday on the 20th at 6:30 is a home opener for boys basketball, and they're playing Falmouth, which is always a pretty exciting other game.
So the girls' home opener is
This Friday at 6:30 is varsity, but there's
tomorrow.
JV earlier. No,
I mean, this Friday.
Yeah, this Friday. Yeah, and then the following Friday. And then you have the report from Consuelo Carroll, our outreach coordinator. And she is going to add for the January report, we had talked about it at our last meeting, that on her chart of data under Facebook, she's going to add another line for reached, which will show, I said she could either average or just pick one of her highlights. Like I had said, when I post on the Mashpee Schools Facebook, anything related to the tribe is what gets me the most reached people through actual viewing and sharing. So she's going to add that little statistic. And she's got a lot of good information on here. Any questions about anything?
That's good. It's busy.
Have the attendance sort of summary in place, and 1,602 students. This is through November's. And then you can see, actually I think she was supposed to change the November Cape Tech just to show you that. And in terms of happenings, next week is sort of a winding down week. And thank you to everyone who was assisting at the parade with their head of time program. Next in the packet, you have an update on my goals. I did meet with the evaluation subcommittee. And so the first, I'm not going to go super detailed, but the first of my goals has to do with developing our next strategic plan, and it's a process called Planning for Success. And you'll see on the right what has happened so far, and we do have dates established, and we have also sent letters out to invite members to participate. The invites would be for four meetings, that the February 4th meeting, the March 10th, the March 26th, and the April 30th. We have in January where the committee is going to decide on 2 members to be represented on this group. I don't know if we can do that sooner. It's definitely been added for January item, but just if you're keeping in mind, whichever 2 of you are going to do it, we need to on that February 4th. First.
And so those 4 meetings are the ones you would be committing to by being designated by the school committee to participate?
Yes, and they're 8:30 to 11:30, I think, meetings. It's not a full day. 8:30 to 11:30, it's at the public library. So I can think about that. So that's the first goal, and I do think we're on track to meet that by June of 2020. Second goal has to do with my classroom visits and providing feedback to teachers and also principals. I send emails as my feedback, and I have a folder of them. I haven't copied principals on them, but I will provide them hard copies. And I have 17 of those through, actually, yesterday, Monday. So you're welcome to see any of those if you'd like. The third goal, which is about attendance, is mainly being worked on. It's a smaller group this year of Compass, which we also met today. And what's really interesting is looking for patterns among, we're starting with just looking at this year's chronic absenteeism. So through last Friday, it was 63 days. So we printed out of Power School anyone who had 6 absences. And then today looking, with key people that know whether it's illness related, vacation related, if there's a pattern of Fridays and Mondays, if it's a whole block of time, and then looking across schools to see if there's family connections and being out on the same day. But what we're doing is creating this one master shared district document where each school, which they already do monitor, but we don't have it in one place, they monitor what they're doing related to students who are chronically absent this year. And what we want to make sure is that it's consistent from school to school. So if you have a child in each school and they're all chronically absent, but you're only hearing from one school, that does not send the right message. And then Mary Kaminsky, our BCBA, who has a sort of passion for, I'd say passion, but a keen interest in chronic absenteeism. At the Coombe School, from the list, she's going to take about 5 students and pilot this program that has to do with sort of looking at a reward or some way of just getting the students in the building. It doesn't matter about the behavior for the day or anything like that. It's just getting them to that point of coming in and staying for the day for some of the kids that may, for whatever the reasons are. And we also looked at some of the issues at high school. We talked about tardies and some kids to avoid an office detention for being tardy would just prefer to be absent. So that's getting all reworked. So when you ask kids why they're not there, you can get a lot of good information. So this is a 2-year goal, but we're definitely making progress, but there's a lot of data to look at.
Before I forget, on the number 2 one, you said you could share your feedback?
I can share.
Yeah, could you share one? I'd love to see what you sent.
Absolutely. The 4th goal is the portrait of a graduate. I kind of put that we were off track a little bit with this because what I really need is for teacher teams to be looking at their grade level, and we created a Google Sheet, and the teacher teams are looking at each descriptor under our portrait of a graduate and what does it look like at their grade level, what opportunities for direct instruction in curriculum, so in their area, and then how are they going to measure that or assess the competency. And so that's a slower process. We are switching back to the top of that list. Grace Antis is a senior who's doing a great job creating the visual. It's almost done. And then once that's done, creating the displays that we want to make it more prominently visual for kids. And also I think we'll be working with some of our kids to sort of get their feedback on how they see that some of the descriptors are being hit. But really, when you look at the descriptors, there's a way to integrate them, most of them, at all grade levels. Maybe not at whatever the level is appropriate. So if it's financial literacy, there's things you can do rooms and all the way up. So finding the time for teachers to go out is the challenge we're working on. And then the last one is the district improvement goal is about diversity, equity, and inclusion and how we can improve it. So far identifying areas to look specifically if we have equity issues. And so you'll see the list there, and we're looking at English language learners, minorities, economically disadvantaged, gender. So the areas are within special education, participation in music programs at all the schools, participation in after-school co-curricular programs, participation in AP and honors courses at Mashpee Middle High School, participation in STEM courses, which sometimes tend to be male folk dominated, participation in enrichment program in grades 5 and 6 at Quash, sports participation, the students who are in honor societies. We're looking at discipline entries, the log entries in Power School, and then also student performance. And then related to that is also continuing to focus on creating a more diverse staff, doing PD with staff about unconscious bias, and then also a survey for students about their perception and how they feel in this environment in terms of whether they feel that they're valued, they have equal access to anything they want to do. And then the goals that were sort of part of that, the 6 areas for diversity, inclusion, equity, inclusion on that next page, I really think 1 and 2 are sort of the focus area, narrowing down. Some of them I think we're in a good place with, but those 2 are where the work would narrow down to. Any questions?
It's a bit of tape.
Then the FY21 budget summary is in here. The only, really there's no change from the last one you saw in November. It's just a little bit of, it doesn't really show that well. We did a little tweaking, or I will say the chair did, on the chart on page 11 that had to do with budget comparison, just to make it look a little bit more attractive. This has been provided to the town manager in advance of next week's meeting, and it's also been provided to the liaison to the schools who's on the finance committee, so that he has an opportunity to look at it in advance. Does anyone have any questions on this? So it remains mine until you make your final vote on your on the budget, and then it will change to the school committee's narrative.
Has there been any changes in assumptions since you first presented this?
No. When we met with the town manager, actually it was today, we did highlight to him that there's $126,000 in the operating budget that is also on our capital improvement request, and so if it's approved, that will come out of here. And then the next 3 pages, or yeah, 3. This is the text that's going into the newspaper on December 27th. That's the timeline where it has to be published in the newspaper.
This is page 38 in the packet.
Yeah, 38, 39, and 40. It's just all the same data. It's presented a little bit differently. It's presented more like school specific and broken down into categories, but it all adds up to the same. And the dates that are included on your agenda are just for your information. purposes, so on the 19th, next Thursday, I think it's 8:30, is our presentation of the budget to the town manager. And then you, the committee, will have your public hearing on the 8th. You will vote on your budget on the 22nd, and we are sending it over to the town manager, the final approved one on the 23rd. He had a different date, but he extended based on your meeting schedule. And we don't have any dates yet for the presentation to the finance committee, and we don't have a date yet when CIP is being reviewed and approved or recommended.
Just a question on page 38. Make a statement that the budget includes non-contractual salary increases, or in the word concerned with the some staff in Unit C.
But it reflects non-contractual salary increases for some staff. So the some staff is Unit C is the only known one.
Right. I guess the way I'm interpreting that is only some of the staff are getting increases, but that's not true.
No, it's known contractual salary increases for some of our staff, and that is the Unit C members, and then everything else is estimated.
Okay, so I'm just misreading.
Well, no, I don't know.
Yeah, but we can look at it again. Hasn't money.
Okay.
We can certainly revisit.
Let's just double check that. The wording. I don't know if anyone else reads it that way.
I can see where you're coming from. I didn't necessarily read it that way, but I definitely can see how you read it.
So if we could just say that it reflects known contractual salary increases for Unit C and estimated salary increases.
Yeah, that's. We just did it.
We'll just take out.
We just did it. We didn't have to do it.
Hold on, we have to just make sure that everyone gets changed.
The board did it.
Is it typical in what we put in the newspaper to not indicate the percentage increase or refer to the previous year's budget?
Probably.
We've never put percentages before.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to do anything different.
Okay, and do you have any other questions about anything? I think that concludes my section of that. Go ahead and look at a 6:45 on the dot.
All right, so welcome Skyla. So we, next on the agenda, we have the report of our student representative, Skyla Ruffle.
Oh, she has her microphone. Come on, Mr.
What?
Good evening. First, I wanted to report about winter sports tryouts, as at the middle and high school level, we've been having basketball, track, hockey, and gymnastics starting. And at Mashpee, we have a culture of hard work and mental toughness, and for all of our teams, we have a very successful seasons to come. The We Are Mashpee store is hosting gift wrapping, and groups such as the class of 2022 and National Junior Honor Society are gift wrapping for people in our community for donations for their organizations. The class of 2020 is selling Christmas trees as a class fundraiser this Friday and Saturday at True Value, which would be a fun, festive way to support the senior class. At Mashpee Middle High School, the art students have painted the cafeteria windows with beautiful holiday designs and characters. We had our Mashpee Christmas parade last Saturday with lots of Mashpee music performances and students spread throughout various floats and causes. The students who had taken the PSATs in October received their scores back earlier this week, which is just another tool for preparation for higher education. 6 sophomores, Colin Spencer, Ava Christo, Kalia Eaton, Cheyenne Hendricks, William Henley, and Samantha Maury were all selected for the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Conference in mid-June, and they were chosen because of their leadership skills and by teachers that they have that recognize that. The National Art Honor Society and National Technical Honor Society gift-making event was last Wednesday night on December 4th, and where they had students from the community come in and design coasters and play with pre-made wooden holiday decor, and they auctioned those off, and there was cookie decorating, and it was just another great example of what our makerspace at Mashpee is capable of. The Mashpee robotics team has another robotics competition this Saturday, December 17th. Some of our Mashpee High School seniors are beginning to hear back from schools that they applied to. The Human Rights Club at the high school is preparing for a diversity week that will include the entire school in January. The class of 2023, which is the freshman class, is preparing for a floor hockey tournament, which is bringing back something that we did here at Quashnet in the 6th grade, and it will be a unique class fundraiser. Project 351 for Mashpee has our new ambassador, Andrew Kelly, and he was selected because of his leadership and service skills. And Katrina and I are very happy to have him on our team and help prepare him for a fantastic year of service. And lastly, the National Honor Society hosted their blood drive last Friday at the high school, which they collected from student and staff members. The National Honor Society members volunteered, aided, and organized the event, which was overall successful, and it's an annual event that helps to better our Cape Cod community.
See, you've got a new organizational tool over there. Well, you're getting more organized with each presentation. I love it.
Thank you.
Girl after my own heart. Thank you, Skylar.
Thank you.
All right, so next, it's you, Mr. Funk.
Yes. In the interest of time and keeping this rolling so we can all go home and watch the Hallmark Channel,
Okay.
I'll entertain any questions on the budget. We'll start there and then we'll move into the...
You guys have any questions?
I will not be watching the Hallmark Channel, but I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions on the budget.
I'm good with that. We're in very positive shape this time of year. Moving on to grants. You'll notice a couple of grants that we, a couple of new grants, the Innovation Pathways Grant, which was a preparation grant for the Skills Capital Grant. One was for $10,000, the other one was for $250,000. The equipment and so forth have been purchased. It's kind of a, you buy the equipment and then you submit all the invoices to the state, and then they reimburse you for what you purchase. So I've done all the reimbursements. I'm just waiting for the checks at this point. So, the rest of them, the grants are pretty much as you see them. Questions on any of the grants?
What did we get last year?
Pardon me?
So total grants for this year is 1.1?
1.1, but you know, over the years we've got less and less. If you take out those two grants for $250,000, $10,000.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that we really have been on a decline.
Oh, yes.
Thank goodness we got these.
We've been competitive.
This is a competitive grant.
Yeah.
This is a competitive grant. I believe
Thank you
if
to
the
our grant
assistant
writer.
superintendent would comment on it, I think there's a couple of, I know there's another
No, there's another 47,000.
47.
47 plus.
That's why I asked you the question.
So the $10,000 pathway grant was for planning to write the grant, but we didn't actually get the money until we had already written the grant. So now we have to spend that by December, which we have. For the pathway, there was also an implementation grant that we wrote that gave you your startup money for year one, and that was supposed to come in June, and we got it 2 weeks ago, I think. But that's okay because we're excited that we got it, and that So that's 47, I have it, like 47.2 or something like that. And then the skills capital, and then there'll be additional information coming forward about additional grants that, but there's some borrowed information right now that I can't share publicly. But yeah, competitive grants are doing well.
Well, I'm just really grateful that we have you and the folks who help you do that, because I think it's important for the public to know that we're proactively going out and trying to get funds to increase programming and to better serve the students, and we're not just relying on the town and, you know, that budget to keep moving the needle forward, so thank you.
And it is a team, I just want to say, people who are working and bringing the grants forward, so teachers do, administrators do. So it's really, we have really innovative, awesome, excited educators in Mashpee who bring these things forward, so.
And just one other comment, the $250,000 was for all equipment, it wasn't for salaries or.
No, it's all skill, it's all capital.
All, you know.
All capital equipment.
Right, all capital equipment that we probably wouldn't have been able to purchase without that grant.
Right. Thanks, Paul.
The next one is the, any of the revolving accounts, any questions? Moving on to the choice revenue, it's pretty self-explanatory. We have that $207,000 out there in expenses. Will be that'll start to show as expenditures and not incomes. So we now have a balance of $255,258.79. Getting carried over. And on page 66, it's just an update on where we are with the school choice proposed use funding.
It's actually down below.
It's where?
It's under.
Oh, we have another.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Not that you can't talk about it.
I'm not going to talk about it.
Well, you will.
No, I just made a comment that that's the.
I know.
They have questions.
So we haven't received for a while a school lunch report.
I will speak to the food service director.
Are we able to get that for
January?
January?
Absolutely.
And if possible on a regular basis
I will speak
going forward.
Don, could you put your mic down? I can't hear you very well. And if I can't hear you, then closer. You seem especially lower tonight. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just because I'm tired. Just like tilt the mic to like it's, yeah, there you go.
Right here?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me out there?
See, that's better already. Brian just,
Okay, that concludes my report. Madam Chair.
What's that?
That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, so we are moving on subcommittee reports. Policy is the next one. Do you want me to take this, or are you going to take it? Or?
Well, so I don't know if you want to do it there or down below. I mean, you can do it wherever. It's all of the.
Yeah, so I guess all this, there's going to be a vote later in the agenda to update the policy manual based on our last meeting. So that's really all you need to know from that. Don, do you want to update the group on negotiations or anything there?
Yeah, so the group, the negotiation team met with Unit A the other day, and we're moving forward. We'll be meeting with them again next week, so we got a very robust schedule in December. Got it?
Okay. All right, now on to the working group updates. We don't have anyone here from the finance working group. Oh, you are, okay, I'm sorry. I keep thinking it's still George and Jeff, I apologize.
And you had a handout that looks like this, which is the 5 years. And then there's also a sheet with some assumptions, not in the back. Good?
No. I don't have anything that has a little clip on it.
No, no, wait a minute.
No,
This
yeah.
stuff?
But it looks like this.
Oh, I got it, I'm sorry. I was thrown by this yellow. Where's your yellow one?
So you should have this, do you have this one?
Yes,
That's the
yes,
assumptions?
yes.
Mr. Funk, do you have these? Or do you need them?
And then,
That's
so
just in the
so this just gives you the totals,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other one gives you more of a line item analysis of what's being projected going forward on level services.
So at what point do we look at, like for this year, you know, we had a roughly a 20% increase in our school choice, folks that choice into the district. A bit unusual because we've been kind of at the same level for during my tenure on the committee at least, but over the last 3 or 4 years. So at what point do we look at that and challenge the assumptions that you've made in here? Like, say that number went up 20% again next year, how does that affect these assumptions?
Well, we're talking about net school choice.
Right, yeah, so,
20%?
yeah, we had 120 students come in this year and only 100 go out. But it always used to be the same.
It was closer.
Yeah, it was very close. It was like, it was almost equal. And so if that trajectory continues, you know, we're gonna have to start to use some of those choice funds to, you know, potentially add staff or, you know, adjust for those additional bodies.
Well, I think at a certain point too, we gotta look at limiting.
Or
the amount.
limiting, yeah, exactly.
But part of the problem is you're not seeing the overall increase in the student body, you're actually seeing a decrease in the student body.
Okay, that's a good point. So that if we're getting more in, but the total number of students in the district is not increasing, then, okay, that makes sense.
And the assumptions that for the 5 years out, we're building in a 0.5% decrease in enrollment each year.
What's that work out to be?
Well, if you look at the bottom of this chart, it's basically, you know, it's like 6 kids a year.
Okay.
And then with that, you know, some anticipated down the road within that 5-year span, some reduction in staff.
Okay.
Some numbers. Isn't it?
The only thing that kind of jumps out at me is the getting a decline in the percentage in FY '23. So it goes up just a tiny bit from 21 to 22 and then begins to decline. What is it because we're just too far out, the assumptions? Or?
Well, it's directly tied pretty much to what she was just talking
With the
about.
student decline?
With the student decline, and then of course bonding services will decline also.
Is the biggest piece being the personnel. That's,
Okay.
although that's not coming down, so I'll take that back.
Well, it's not increasing as fast.
Okay.
You're asking us to make, you know, on some things, we can get pretty close to what it's gonna cost us, like the transportation, we're out that far. But when you get into the special ed pieces and the out-of-district, transportation and the homeless
No, which
transportation.
I understand, it's just, it's odd to see a decline as opposed to see it just kind of flatline.
Yeah.
But we would expect, I mean, I think if you look at our personnel costs, I mean, you can kind of see where as people retire and younger teachers come in, you know, those costs are gonna fall a little bit, and So I think that makes sense, but,
What did we say?
I think it's great. I mean, I'm so glad that you guys are working on this because I think what it gives us the ability to do, and I'm sure the administration as well, is to really have an understanding. There isn't some cliff out there. There isn't something that, based on a certain set of assumptions, and which is all we can really work with right now. Yeah. It's good to kind of know that we're not talking about needing 8% or, I think it's really helpful. So it must be hard for you to deal with all that uncertainty, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, especially, schools are different than the rest of the town. They can say, they know how many firefighters they're going to need going out, and, they can estimate those expenses. Where it's a little harder for us to estimate the expenses. Not the expenses within the schools, because we've set a percentage for that, what we're going up. It's just the other items.
Okay, and then into your packet is page 66, which is the sort of proposed use of school funds. So I left the chart at the top as it was agreed to and then updated as of 11/20. This one, 66.
Oh, yeah, I had a question.
And then what we did down below was reflect the finance working group meeting of the 4th of December. And so the AP test registration fees, which was talked about at the last meeting, comes in at about $18,153 or something, $18,000.
For the 211, is a total.
Sorry, just kidding. Are these supposed to be connected to something?
No.
What are they?
No.
Let's just ignore this.
Yes.
So 18,153 exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, we talked about, one of the things unless you want to talk about this, Dawn, because you were the finance working group.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So at the finance working group, I'm going to go up top. We talked about the in-house driver's education program, and that would not be something that we would do. We're going to look at a little more data, possibly FY21 if we do it at all. It is a private company that comes into Mashpee. It also it's also in several other other towns. And right now it does like an intense couple of weeks, and then they do their actual driving experience. But there's about 12 kids in it now. They're not all from Mashpee. It's not running through the rec department, although I do think we pay a fee to DPW for using the space. Anyway, there's a lot more information to find out about it. I think the gist of what Dawn was trying to do is to make sure that a student who is in need and can't afford to take driver's ed, if there's anything we can do to support the opportunity to do so, because then his insurance rates will be lower. But it's just like a little bit of a snowball effect if you don't get to take advantage of that class. But the recommendation of the finance working group is that it would be possibly considered for FY21, so that's not something we're looking at this year. And then down below, the AP test registration fees, we put at $20,000. Actually computing based on the kids who are in AP, it came out to $18,153, but we just picked a rounder number for that. And if we were to go forward with that, it could come out of the $88,000 we put in for the teacher desk chair replacement, because that's a lot more expensive than we thought. And maybe we would first of all, I really want to check the teachers to make sure they were interested in I think mostly they would be interested in the chair. I think most people don't care that much about their desk, but anyway, I think we could wiggle a little bit there, and we were going to wait a little bit till spring on that anyway. And then down below, the driver's ed, FY22, I'm sorry, I said FY21 above, we were shifting that to FY22. And then the 4 CIP projects we had listed above, these are more of the actual numbers based from DPW's CIP request. I did pass this out to everyone, which shows our CIP and then merging it in with DPW.
So it's all the same numbers?
It matches, mine, I went with Catherine's estimates if it happened. So the air conditioning of the 2 classrooms, that's a request by DPW in FY 2021, and you'll see it on the list at $25,000 apiece, so there's the 50. The one-to-one Chromebooks at the Coon School, we originally had up above at 50, but it's more of 30. And let's see, where is that? That's down below on our CIP request. Then the MMHS library upgrade the furnishings at $150,000. Some of that's DPW, that is in FY '21. And in speaking with the town manager today, he did bring up that we were addressing the carpet in that space. And so it's a whole part of a bigger piece. So that's there, half us or partially us, partially them. And then the Quashnet School air conditioning has been, that's the $62,000 DPW projected at, but it's been moved to FY '22 on the DPW list. And so,
just to clarify, that's air conditioning for the library.
Oh, the library, yes, only, not the whole school. So I think it's just an update in whether you would need to decide how you feel, or at this point with the AP idea, and whether that money would come out of the 88. Yes, we did talk about creating a system for a little bit more inclusive planning and projection of using the use of funds that was inclusive of sort of not just school committee wish list, but administrators and teachers. Because we probably would have landed with the AP issue on our main list had we incorporated more input from others. So we're going to work on a system as we move forward in future years to make sure we're hitting all of the targets that we all have.
Yeah, I think that it's, I actually thought that iteration was kind of happening, like that we kind of spitball a few ideas and that you sort of validate that with kind of what, but I also think another source of, like the driver's ed thing, for example, I haven't heard people complain about that, so I don't think that, to me, that's something that Don's advocating for, but I was thinking about the family opinion survey and how we asked, what can we do to improve our schools? And we got a lot of open-ended responses that I know you've been looking at. I think that could be a source too. So it's like the families letting us know what they think should be priorities, the school committee from what we're hearing and what we are looking in our bird's eye view, and then the staff and teachers. So I think absolutely it should be kind of a mix.
And it's great timing because of doing the strategic planning for us to create a system by which all of that input is garnered and then considered, as opposed to, because I think sometimes things get thrown out and there isn't a system that we vet that for. Like it's sort of like, oh, this is what we want to do. And I think when we miss the voice of the teachers, that's a really important voice when we're talking about this kind of money.
Well, that raises a question about, first of all, I would love to see the funding for the AP testing happen. Can we give teachers the option? Can we say, hey, if you want a new desk, if you want a new chair, let us know. We're prepared to do that. But we'd like to use some of the money we had allocated that to compensate for this AP testing. So if you can do with what you have, let us know so we can kind of take you off the list. Is it possible to do it that way?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a way to sort of find out more what they're looking for. The way things usually go is teachers end up buying their own shares when they come in, and they keep that for most of their career. So some may want a chair, some may not want. And really, the desk is not, I think I'll be wrong.
Yeah.
Really trying to get people to not use the desk as often.
And again, I think getting their input into that idea was thrown out, but it didn't necessarily come from, we don't know where it came from. So.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
It's not like they were rising up saying they needed new desks.
Yeah, we try and think of where's the need. And for, is it okay, the driver's ed too, we did talk to Mr. Belastacci and Mrs. Kett today about actually driver's ed while we were talking about the AP. And there is currently sort of a system in place when there is a need that is meeting some of that need, and there has not been a demonstrated need to Mr. Belastacci and Mrs. Kett. I don't want to get into like details on how right now, but there are ways that kids are supported who have either demonstrated a need or have been identified as a need. And it's not every single one, but no one has come to either of them concerned that they weren't able to take driver's ed. So
I think one of the advantages of being a small district is, and particularly at all schools, is really knowing what's going on with families and our kids. And Principal Belastacci talked today about in past years, he's known of a student that really would benefit, and he's worked with that particular provider and come up with a way to make sure that student participated in driver's ed.
So in regard to AP registration fees, the $18,153 would cover 100% of the AP, regardless of a student's need.
yes, there are 41 of the 211 exams would be at the free and reduced rate, and 170 of those exams are the full price. And that coming together brings up the $18,153.
And just kind of playing off of what you just said a second ago, so have we had parents or students come to the principals or yourself?
Yes. So Mrs. Kett was describing a mother who was crying this fall because between the college apps and the APs and all of that, there's three kids in that family. She also told me the Falcon Fund has helped to cover some of the students' costs, but yes, that's where it came from. In fact, me bringing it up last month came directly from Mrs. Kett talking to me at a training we were at. I was getting ready to go over the AP scores with you, and she said, oh, and by the way, if you're talking about it, so it has been a demonstrated need.
And this would cover for an individual taking the exam the first time, correct?
You only take it once. No
matter
matter.
They can't retake it.
They don't retake the test unless they retake the course. But it would be the 211 exams that have been ordered would be covered on that. We also were talking about subsequent years coming up, I'm going to use that system word again, with a system that would support kids being able to take the exam as well. So this 18,000 is sort of getting us through this year, but then we'll come back to you with our ideas about subsequent years.
And right now, it's not in the next budget to do this. This is something that we are using school choice funds for.
In other words, what will happen, even this year, we will add a line to the budget, you'll see it in the budget actual when we finally make the decision.
Right.
And it'll have $0 there, but we'll charge stuff to it and back it out as part of the school choice like we did last year.
Well, historically, we've reimbursed, depending on scores, for AP. Where did that money, that was a line item, where did that come from in the budget?
It wasn't a line item. We were trying to think that.
Yeah, we talked about that
We had a meeting this afternoon. I said, I have to go back.
So I'd be curious as to how much typically year over year we would reimburse.
I'd have to go back.
And how that compares to what we.
The last time they did reimbursement was 13, 14, and 14, 15. So Sean Gilrain's year as principal and then Mark's first year. And it was sort of an incentive for performance. So if you scored a 3, you got 25% of the money back. 4 got you 75%, and if you scored a 5, you got 100% of the money back. And the money went into the students paid to take the test into a student activity account. And then I think you said you actually paid.
We paid for the exam.
Paid for the exam, and then any reimbursement to kids who were successful came out of that activity account.
Okay.
Is what happened there.
That's how we did it.
I think the great thing about providing this opportunity is that if it was predictable, if people knew, like if we knew we were going to offer this as a service, like this is kind of like a pilot here, but more people would take the exams. And I mean, I remember when I took an AP exam, like in French, I got a 3, but that was enough for me to get college credit, and I didn't have to take a language in college. So getting a 4 or a 5 doesn't even matter depending on what the course is. Of course, this was a long time ago. I don't know.
No, absolutely. No, it's true. It is true. When we were just discussing that today, the other thing is part of the innovation pathway that we were designated as. The requirement is that students take at least 2 AP classes or college level classes. And in order, the other piece to the innovation pathway is that we are required to target underrepresented populations. So students with disabilities, students from low or economically disadvantaged, students who are English learners, you know, those subgroups. If we can remove a barrier of access to the test for those kids, they're going to have better opportunity. We also have our innovation pathway mentor who tutors those kids in those AP classes. So the money is what's holding us up right now. And so we felt, I mean, for kids. So we felt like this was a really incredible opportunity to sort of reduce that.
It's also good that it helps us be compliant. It gives us a, what did you say? I forget the word you use, but if we have to come up with these certain criteria to be in compliance with the grant, then this is a one way that we can meet that requirement. So that's helpful too. Okay, so you're going to let us know whether the money's going to come out of the teacher, the $88,000?
Right, well, I think at the next meeting, you might, I might presume you would have to vote because you approved already what's up here and if we're going to make a change. So we'll put that on for January.
Okay, so let's forget you.
I guess a corresponding question though, to extrapolate that discussion into FY '22 is whether or not we do want to include that in the operating budget.
I was planning on including it in the FY '22 budget. I don't get invited to many meetings, and I got invited to the meeting today on this AP, and I was probably there because we're going to start building the FY '22 budget. And, you know, as we were just talking about, it's something we can give the students. And we haven't really, you know, we're going to treat it as an incentive that they get a reimbursement. For this year, we're going to pay for it. I think, you know, I estimated that moving forward, we'll probably have more students taking the exams. So I estimated that it would be a cost of about $25,000. Now, they felt that was high, but I just feel that when we do this, we're just going to get more students taking the exam. And I think it's a great idea. And we would budget it, and we would back out, as we have in the past, you know, it would be budgeted in there, but backed out with the choice money. And, you know, I know Chris always comments that when I say that we're having a pretty good year this year and moving forward. And, you know, we're getting into the holidays and then January's halfway through the year, we can get some real solid numbers on how we're going to close out this year. So, you know, I think that the FY '22 budget and down the road will be really on it.
Any more questions, John? Efficiency and effectiveness. Do you guys meet? Okay.
Wait, I'm asking this question.
No.
Wait, I don't think.
Okay, outreach and engagement. Do you want to talk about outreach?
We did. Was that before? I'm trying to remember when that was. Before the last meeting.
Yeah, we've done some talk and exploration on
November
the sur-
22nd.
on the survey
Oh,
this
that's what
year.
Yeah, you guys talk about that.
Trying to figure out the survey if, School Messenger has the ability to survey, so we're looking into that. We're talking to Panorama, which we've used in the past, for some student surveys, and then some survey money. So we just want to promote, even better participation electronically. So Consuelo is working on the past survey in terms of making it a little bit more appealing in paper format for those who are going to fill it out by paper. We'll use the app to push out the notification. Maybe that will help get people to click on it.
Yeah, it's not just the appearance, but it's also to make it shorter so that it costs us less to mail it, it costs us less to get it back. Just to kind of streamline it a little bit.
You know that now?
I do.
Okay, so that wraps up working group updates. So now we're going to go to some unfinished business. So on the school committee draft FY20 goals, all this vote is to determine, let's see if I can remember without my notes, the goal setting direction. So we've had some discussion over the last several meetings about whether we are setting goals for the district, whether we're setting goals for the committee, that kind of thing. And so we have basically, I think, 3 options. They're not distinct options, I guess. We can go and develop our own goals for the district that we could then hand over to the administration as they kick off their strategic planning process in February. We can designate 2 members of the board to participate in that process and be our representatives in the strategic planning process or that district improvement plan, which is effectively goal setting for the district. And if we did that, we could again draft interim goals for the board, not interim goals, school committee goals that are sort of nested within the existing strategic plan, which helped us formulate these working groups, for example. So the question on the table is whether we can entertain a motion for either one of those options.
I thought we said there were 3.
No, the third one is really to develop our interim, but it kind of nests. If we can either do that independently either way of what we choose to do, or we can do that, we designate 2 people to the strategic planning process, and then we approve some school committee goals for the year.
The third one might have been basically do nothing, just continue on current goals that are
Status quo.
Because I know we talked about sort of a stronger communication from the school committee on social media as a committee, highlighting different things, and that falls within current goals.
And so if we went with that, the sort of school committee level, we would sort of discuss those at the next meeting. So we'd vote, designate 2 people, and then we could have an agenda item to look at. Or perhaps we have a separate retreat or something. I don't know, we have to carve out some time somewhere. January's kind of busy. Budget meetings.
I think it's just kind of hard with just a quorum without the input of the other members.
Well, we've been kicking this horse for a while. I think we should, I think at this point, I would like to see us vote in January to designate 2 members to participate in the strategic planning process. If that has an impact on our goal setting process, then that's fine by me. But I don't think, I would not, whether George and Jeff are here or not, I don't think we should be embarking on a separate process from the administration that's only a few, 8 weeks away from kickstarting.
We can always change it if we need to, too. If we need to revote next meeting, we can, but I agree. I think being part of what they're doing is important because, like we talked about this, and people have different ideas of what the goals are, should align with the district goals and align with everything, just with different things that we're responsible for. So I agree with that. Obviously, we can't designate 2 people here today because we don't have 2 people, the whole 3, but I do agree with that process of having at least 2 people involved with that, and kind of develop our goals based off of what we're doing. So.
The only question I have is, when would the results of this strategic plan?
It's being presented, I think it's the end of April is the last meeting, so into May is when it's getting presented for school plan approval. The strategic plan. Over those 3 years. Yeah, you said it.
So basically, it would help establish the goals for the next year.
Yeah, so then we're kind of in sync again.
Then you can nest them under the 3 that.
So basically, we just kind of keep the status quo of what we've been working on and not establishing new goals.
That's one option. So I think we can decide to send the 2 people, be kind of participants in that process, have ownership of it through that way. Then we could develop new school year goals for ourselves. We could use the existing ones and just change our actions under them, as Patty was suggesting earlier. So, but let's detach that piece from the first item that's up for a vote, which is determine the goal setting direction. So would either of you like to make a motion for that?
I would make a motion that we nominate at the next meeting 2 individuals to represent the school committee on the FY, is it 21?
It's going to be a 3-year plan, I believe.
21-24 strategic plan.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, Don, made the motion, Chris seconded.
Is that at the next meeting?
At the next
It's
meeting.
on.
But I mean, just the motion, is it at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Next meeting that you're.
Yeah. But we would come up with the assignment of individuals at the next meeting.
Is there any further discussion on that motion?
The only discussion I'll have on that is, just want to be sure that when we designate 2 people, because I can pretty much guarantee you I'm not going to be able to volunteer for that, as we know, by enough time and space to trunk stuff. I want to make sure that it becomes a process that doesn't eliminate the rest of the committee from following along throughout the process. You know what I mean? So that way we can, kind of like we do with the working groups, make sure that the committee, because typically when we have 2 people involved in something, then we have to, for quorum's sake, eliminate a lot of the other committees involved. And I don't want to see that happen with our goals.
Well, I mean, I think that's a great suggestion. I mean, one thing we could do is kind of have a strategic planning working group, which is composed of those 2 members, and maybe efficiency and effectiveness doesn't seem to be doing much these days. We could kind of put that on a back burner in place of that.
Yeah, something.
And then we would have regular report outs, which I'm sure you're going to be doing anyway.
I am going to win it, and can't the 2 members simply also report out?
Yeah, instead of just reporting out, though,
I'm going to report out,
I want to be able to make sure that we have a clear path to be able to report in as well. So if I'm not one of the 2 members serving, if I hear something during the meeting, I want to be able to throw my input in.
Yeah, it's not just input of 2 members,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that could be accomplished at this public meeting where you report out, and if you think it's not going, if you think it's not going in the right direction, the other 2 felt it was, and that's when you have that conversation.
That's all, I just want to make sure, and that would be something we'll maybe discuss again next meeting with all the members here, saying, let's just make sure we
You're not going to get
keep it very open.
in May that you didn't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're ready to vote then. Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, so that's passed. Next, we have the joint conference share out from November.
I don't know if you want to highlight your role.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I wanted to make sure, so Chris, were you there?
I was not.
Okay, so I think Don was definitely there, I was there. Jeff was not.
George, I saw.
George came for our session. And you already shared out about our panel.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys heard about that, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think we should do more stuff like that, just put in work that. But the other thing that happened was I became chair of District 7 for MASC. Yeah. So I'm gonna get called chair somewhere. No, I'm just kidding. Phil Morris from DY is the vice chair, and Andrea Thorold from Falmouth is the new secretary. These were just one-year terms, but one of the reasons that I was keen to kind of get more involved is because I feel like a lot of the MASC information that comes to us, that's pushed out through social media and everything, is really geared towards a lot, like the big Boston system, and sort of not so much us out here on the Cape. And I think it's sort of like this, which is first, the chicken or the egg, like, our legislators come to us and say, tell me what you need, tell me how this is going to impact you. And it's like, well, I need some analytical support from MASC to tell me how this is going to impact me. And they push out a lot of stuff about how it's going to impact, Boston Public Schools, but we get precious little information for District 7. So that seemed to resonate with, the 13 or so people who elected me. It was not a big meeting at MASC, but and that puts me on the hook to attend a monthly meeting. There's one meeting in January at the new chair in Woburn. I get to go to Woburn.
Oh, nice.
I'm very excited. Never been. And then they also do a lobbying trip down to DC, which I don't know if I can participate in, but that's something that MASC does. And then they meet monthly as a board on Wednesdays, second Wednesday of the month. So, which was one of my caveats for not doing this before, but when I looked at the schedule, there were only 3 or 4 meetings that I couldn't make, so I'm looking at DY or Falmouth to kind of back us up on that. The other reason I wanted to do it is because I was also recently appointed to be the Northeast Director for the American Indian Alaska Native Council of the National School Board Association. And the goal of that council is to really increase sharing and awareness of the way public school districts serve American Indian Alaska Native students. I personally think that we're doing a lot of amazing things in Mashpee that I think could be shared more broadly, and so that was one of my reasons for being interested in the position. Also, the salary and benefits are no, but it's obviously volunteer, unpaid. But they also meet at the National School Board Association meeting, so that's kind of the time that the council gets together. And I'm also very anxious to learn about what other districts are doing in other places that we might be able to replicate here, or so it's really just a way to look very broadly across the nation at how we're serving American Indian Alaska Native students. And I'm going to find out more information about it, but one of the things that Patty and I talked about is it's like $95 for a school board member to join that council. And they're always looking to grow those numbers so that they can offer more information out to the districts nationwide. So that might be something I might recommend at a future meeting to see if anyone else on the Mashpee School Committee wants to be a member of the American Indian Alaska Native Council. I really love being the liaison with the tribe, but every one of us represents the tribal students in this district, and I don't think that that's my responsibility alone, and I know that you guys are all interested in supporting that too, so if being a member of the council helps you guys, in your capacity on the board, I think it would be worth doing. So I'll let you know when I learn more about that. So that's my update from that. You have any, Don?
No?
No? Okay.
That's good.
Okay, so why are these two things separate? The next one, victims advocacy, policy reference.
Well, that is how it was on several different agendas, and then in response to that is the policy
Okay.
adjustments.
So, what she said. And so now we have policy manual updates based on, we went to Mask and asked them to help us update these policies, and so we're recommending, I think you have in your packet, the current and new policies, they're labeled in your packet. And so we're seeking a vote tonight to update the policy manual with these so that our bullying prevention and intervention can be cross-referenced in the relevant policies across the district. And I think they resulted in one brand new, which is on page 69, policy on educational equity. Yes.
So the first group that have highlights on them, the changes were specifically given to us or recommended by MASC versus the second section of papers where we're going to add a cross-reference to our bullying prevention and intervention plan. So JB is equal educational opportunities, and there's minor edits there. Then the educational equity policy, which is JBB, is brand new. Then the third policy is homeless students enrollment rights and services. It's JFABD. And you will see, I think our old policy is in here as well with my scribble marks. You may be looking at the new policy. And the policy subcommittee did look at all of these.
Yeah, so I should have added that we looked at all these and we are recommending these changes as presented. Dawn and I.
And then the last one, educational opportunities for military children, JFABE. And we had one in there of ours already, so you see the changes there. And let's see, last one, these got a little out of order. The last one is JFABF, which is educational opportunities for children in foster care. And I think the pages are misnumbered, but you basically have two with highlights and then our current one, which is on page 81 and 82. Those are policy changes recommended by MASC. And then the next, so in the next packet, we will just be adding a cross-reference to our bully prevention and intervention plan, and that cross-reference is going on AC, non-discrimination, policy ACAB, which is sexual harassment, policy JIC, student discipline, prohibition, I don't know how to tell that word, of hazing, which is JICFA, will reference the bully prevention plan. JICFAE on hazing will also reference it, and then JICFB will reference our specific plan, the only reference currently is on Desi's plan, but not specific Mashpee plan. And then I think we just included our current bully prevention and intervention plan.
Some flashbacks from your time on the policy committee? You missed it?
No.
So you are going to be asked to vote on approving those changes.
Yeah, I will.
It's a question.
I will.
Well, that was going to be my question. So as the only person here at this current table that wasn't part of that committee, so I assume neither one of you had really any other input on it. I did read through these and I don't really have any real input on the policies or changes. But I guess I'll read my question to the rest of you at the table is, do you want to move forward with an actual approval for the policy manual, missing 2 members, or approve it as a first reading. I'm okay with it, obviously, the way I look to it. I don't have any changes, but as a committee, do you feel that we should do that or do it as a first reading?
I don't know, we've had this discussion before. I always thought that the policy subcommittee sort of acts as the first read, and that allows us to approve. But when we updated the manual, we were providing those periodic updates, and that those were the first reads. This hasn't been in the packet before?
It has,
Oh, it was?
the last one.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too. Me not being
It just
here last
didn't,
meeting,
it got
I don't know.
tabled.
Okay.
I took the notes, that's how I know that. But it was included in the packet and was up for discussion before it got tabled. So everyone has had it since November 16th.
What do you think, Don?
I mean, traditionally, we have done it as a first read, but I don't have a problem with moving it forward as a final read, because we have had it in the packet. It's been go over. Usually it's the first time there's a silver to have an opportunity.
So I think then we have to have a motion to waive the first read, because I think technically, or how do we do it for the?
I don't think we have a first read policy.
We don't.
So there's no rules to waive.
I was basically just asking out of courtesy. If we want to give, courtesy to the other 2 members, or do we feel that they've got enough time to look at it and we don't need to provide that? That's really what I was going with it. Not that we need to have a first read, but
Well, I mean, these are all living documents, so if we approve these changes and someone has a wording change or a comment, then it just comes back into the circle again, so.
sounds good to me.
I would like to dispense with it as an agenda item, because January is already starting to fill up, so if we can pass it, I'm in support of that.
Sounds good to me.
So I will entertain a motion. It's so fun to hear. Who's it gonna be?
See if we can get this right then. I'll make a motion to approve the policy manual updates to policy JB.
Just as presented.
Well, we have to do both because we're actually adding the policy. So we have to approve the changes and then have another motion to add a policy.
So, okay, is that okay? It's not on the agenda, it's 2 separate votes.
I think probably word it.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Keep going.
All right, well then we'll make this motion. Move to approve the policy manual updates and additions as listed.
Works for me. Don, you second? Okay, Don seconds. Any discussion? All right, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, new business. So we were notified by someone at the town that our next school committee meeting, or not next, our April 8th school committee meeting conflicts with the start of Passover. Do we want to do anything about that? This was initially one of the meetings that George could not make. We pushed the time back to 6:30.
So we cool?
Yeah.
Yes.
The meeting is before sunset.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, 5:30 wouldn't have gotten us anywhere. We would have had the same conflict.
April?
Oh, I don't know.
Would have been
When
potentially.
do we fall back?
Oh, before that, for sure.
March is March.
Yeah.
And so you have the option before to change the 15th.
No, he already said no.
April 15th.
But I don't, well,
What do you want
That's
to do
got
the
it.
first?
we can't do that.
We can't do the first?
No.
the meeting we have in March, the last one was the 18th.
So what is the actual, and I understand the accommodation, but is there an actual problem that would prevent us from conducting the meeting because of it? Is there key people not going to be here, or is there any reason that we could not still hold the meeting?
I think it's to allow people
To observe Passover.
to observe Passover and not miss the opportunity. That's my guess.
That is not our,
Unless we move it to another day of the week. That becomes just problematic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. We move it to another day, or either another Wednesday or
what does the
Tuesday,
7th
or...
look like of that week, week of 7th? There's nothing that evening in the district. That's your own schedules. So we could, why don't we, what's the potential to propose that at the January 8th meeting?
Yeah.
So we would tentatively see if everyone can do April 7th, 5:30.
All right.
Have the meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, for one day,
That's two options.
or we could do it 7 in the morning.
Wednesday.
Be
but-
guaranteed to be done.
But on the
No, I can't do that.
George can't come earlier because he's doing class.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we restricted to 6:30.
Yeah, because the cooperative meeting's at 5.
We got a couple options. I mean, I hate to leave anybody off of the meeting, but if we have to miss one person, then we gotta do what we gotta do, you know? They don't listen to it. So it does happen.
Okay, so we have a couple options there. Look into either the April 7th at 5:30, or we could go to the 15th.
We're not going earlier on the 8th.
He can't
Was that
visit
I
the.
like all options.
No, I mean like 3 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Like 3 to 5, and then George does his class.
Right.
And we've not put any sentences.
Okay, that's fine.
Putting them all in the minutes.
All
and
options
then
on the table.
It'll be up for a vote in January.
Yeah, hopefully we'll come, if you could discuss and come up with a recommendation of those three.
Well, I'm trying not to be biased from our preference, but
Yeah.
okay.
No, like,
Yeah, we will then.
yes.
Okay. What'd you say?
Maybe two.
Two options.
Two options.
That's fine. Okay, crisis communication. Oh, okay, so I had asked for this to be put on just based on the November 22nd incident that we had at the middle high school district-wide, resulted in all the absences. I just wanted to check in, see if there were any things we thought we wanted to change based on how that went, or any lessons learned, kind of like a hot wash of sorts, if you will, or from your field.
Somebody knows that.
I did not get any, I don't know, I can't speak for the other board members, but I did not get any complaints or emails or any correspondence from any families in the district.
No.
I heard from some parents in terms of whether the absence was excused or not. And, I support a parent's decision. I think the challenge from my perspective as the district leader and in interacting with other district leaders is we have a really good relationship with the Mashpee Police, and Chief Carline I trust explicitly. And when he says that a threat is not credible, and based on that, generally that is not something that gets shared with parents. the difficulty comes when school committee members are notified and they are parents. And so for them to have sort of insider information puts you in a difficult position where you're going to make a decision because you know and other parents don't. So I think that's why there was a general, not a pressure, but an encouragement to notify other parents. If members of the school committee, and particularly the chair, did not have children in this district, I'm not sure it would have gone the same way. And we did have an extremely large absenteeism that day. And I do feel that we had, it's my responsibility to make sure our kids are safe, and I would do everything to make sure of that. And if we have plans in place through working with the police to ensure that, then that should be what we function from. And then the other question I had, with some students is, why didn't I cancel? Well, if it were to happen every day, and I get the same piece of information from the police chief, we cannot not hold school every day in a period of time. So I was confident that we had everything under control. Now, information, because more parents were sort of in an alarm mode, did come forward. That's helpful, but I think that was also sort of a known piece of information as well. So that might have been an extra benefit from informing parents. We do have a lot of students, and I don't know how to help them all, but generally it's a societal concern with anxiety in children. It's pretty prevalent. We do have a great team, I think, in the district, and we have a lot of strategies to help students. We need them, there with us, but so most of my reach out back to families who shared their own personal situations was to sort of reach out and offer resources to really help them. And I understand anxiety from a personal level, and so I have total compassion for trying to help students and parents navigate that. It's not an easy thing. So, but I think the day was fine, and we debriefed on it, and I just want to definitely reinforce with the partnership we have with the police department. It's really outstanding.
The one thing that I would say, I did choose to have my son go to school there that day, and one of the messages that I heard on the radio that morning, as there was a robust discussion taking place on the radio also, but made a lot of sense to me was, on that day, the safest place to be in this town was at that high school, because there was extra security there. That was the safest place. Even being at home would not have been safe. Right? So I understand the fear factor, and I don't want to discount individual parents' decisions, because they have a right to make that decision. All I'm saying is my decision is based on the fact that I trust our police, our town's safety net to operate, and if I felt that there was a credible risk, I may have acted differently, but I firmly believe that that was the safest place, and they were one of the few people there, but they were there.
Well, to your point too, Don, obviously, like Patty had said, we knew a little bit more about what was going on, and I think just to play a little bit of devil's advocate here with just the broader community, there's always questions, right? So, not knowing details and not knowing specifics about certain, potential threats and all that, you can feel like, and I agree with you, that the school, because of the police presence and because of the vigilance that, everybody's going to be heightened, was probably the most safest environment. But it's human nature to keep questioning things like, there's a threat. Well, what was it? Was it a bomb scare? Was it a, somebody talking about weapons or anything like that, and those are questions that can't be answered. We can't give those details, we can't tell parents and kind of, appease them, and give them the right answers that they need to hear. So I do get it, I understand that, where that would come from, and I don't know that there's a right answer for that. I think that's just the unfortunate society we live in, and I don't think there's a real good answer for that. We're just gonna have to give the information we give, and parents are gonna have to make the best decision for them and their family. And just trust that the school district is doing everything we can to keep the kids safe.
Well, I do think that I would go on record and say that I supported your decision to notify parents. I do not feel that information about the safety of the children, that threat is a privilege of my office. I don't think that as a parent I should be, unless I didn't sign anything when I took this office that said I got to know things and I would not act on them, so I was put in a position where as a parent I was going to make a decision about my children, and I did not feel that every other parent should not be given that same opportunity. So I think, like you said, once we knew, I think you made the right call. And I also, the only other thing that I saw and heard afterwards was that the unfortunate timing of some social media that we had sent out that was probably pre-planned with respect to some district news that sort of went out as this was all unfolding. And I think there should be some protocol that once you get that first notification that everything kind of goes on lockdown. So
that was removed.
Yeah, so it created this unnecessary perception problem that I was a little annoyed about, because I thought, these are people doing their best. Let's give the district a moment to sort of figure all this out. But I think that was the only thing that I saw that was a little out of sync. But otherwise, I think I thought the messages that you sent out were, particularly the one the night before school, was exactly, it was all the information that was had. So, and then I also think that, as you pointed out, that the police department is actually the lead for determining whether these threats are credible.
Yeah.
And so I think if people have questions about what a credible threat is, what happens when something's deemed not credible, the police department is really the appropriate place to get answers to those questions. And if other people in the town wanted to be notified about it, out that they're not in the district in terms of having kids here, then I think that's the obligation of the police department to let other people in the town know what's going on, because you're focused on what's happening in the district. So
that's a great point.
Yeah. Any other thoughts before we move on? Thanks, Patty. Okay, this one you're gonna have to tell me what this
So
is.
this is in your packet, and this was the recent passing in Massachusetts of the Student Opportunity Act. And so just some couple of the highlights: it does require each superintendent, in consultation with school committee, to establish local targets consistent with targets from DESI. So there's a lot of have-tos, and just to sort of, like many things from DESI will give us guidance and give us a sort of a template, but we have to create a 3-year plan, and the first plan is due no later than April 1st of next year. And the plan outlines how Chapter 70 funds will be allocated among schools within the district. This would not be a hard plan to sort of lay out, because we're very equitable with the evidence-based program supports and interventions that the district will implement to address achievement gaps, metrics used to measure success in addressing the achievement gaps, and a description of how the district will effectuate and measure increased parental engagement, especially parents of low-income students, English learners, students with disabilities. So when that gets sent out, and DESI will publish sort of what we want to follow, we'll take care of that. Then it talks about the school funding formula, and that it increases the amount of money provided for low-income students and increases the number of students defined as low-income by returning the definition of low income to 185% of the federal poverty level, and it's currently been at 133%. Another component is schools will receive significantly more money for special education and English language learners as part of it. The Act allows school districts to be reimbursed for the cost of out-of-district transportation in the following increasing increments of transportation. So 2021, you get 25%, 2022 goes up to 50, 2023, 75%, and by 2024, they're supposed to reimburse us 100% for out-of-district transportation. And then the Act also increases reimbursement to cities, towns, and regional school districts for charter school tuition. They detail that. It increases the cap on school building authority, MSBA monies. And it also establishes a 21st century education program and competitive grant program to address achievement gaps. So that was passed in Massachusetts, and so you'll see more about that in the background.
I believe that's the first mandate I've seen in the last 6 years that actually accompanied funding.
This was historical.
Yeah, that's.
It's been 1992.
You'll do this, you'll do this, and pay for it.
Okay, so thank you for that. I do not have anything for stuff I didn't know in advance. We don't have any additional public comments.
Well, if you have more to say about that, not know in advance.
Oh, you had something?
Based on the public comment tonight, I do think we should at least have the policy committee look at something for this. Based on the last paragraph recommendation from Phyllis. I think it is something we should at least.
Yeah, I'm gonna look because I thought there was something in there about it.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
Look at it.
I had to see if it's covered here. And if not,
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's not schedule a meeting unless we determine it's needed.
Yeah.
right,
As a member of that committee. Any other? I meant to ask, at some point, can you let us know about the 2 grant programs under school choice, like for the teachers and the students, whether we're getting any applicants?
So we have 9, so the deadline for the innovative classroom is the 15th, and I think it was yesterday was the last time I printed them out, but it was 9. Good sort of sprinkling in each school, which is good. And then for student applications, I think there's 4, and those can be done at any time, so we'll look at those. Because I know one of the ones is tied to a senior project where he wants to teach those 8th to 6th graders, I think, and we wanted the equipment for that, so.
Yeah, I was thinking about specifically, I know that the Elementary Honor Society is having their induction, so that, because that's kind of service oriented, we might want to make them specifically aware of that opportunity and encourage the students to kind of think outside the box in terms of getting
I know
funding.
one of the grant requests is a couple of students here, and I don't know which group does it, but and I noticed it the other day, there are students who now greet out front with
Oh,
Mary
yeah, I
Kay.
saw that, yeah.
And they wanted sort of sweatshirts that had a certain percent. That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's cute. All right, cool. Thank you. All right. No other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, got a motion from Chris to adjourn. Dawn, second. No discussion. Dawn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion's adjourned.
Nice.